Good morning, dear students. In the previous lectures, we have discussed about two methods of project selection. One was net present value method, and another method, it was internal rate of return. These two methods were basically focusing on calculation of the present value of the future cash flows, what we are getting. In one case, we were subtracting the initial investment from the present value of future cash flows and trying to calculate the net present value. In internal rate of return, we were trying to find out the discount rate at which the net present value is equal to 0. Means your initial investment should equal to the present value of all the future benefits, all the future cash flows, what you are going to get. Now we have to move further for the third method, which is again based upon the discounted cash flow, which takes into account the time value of money, and this particular method is called as the benefit cost ratio method. This method is also referred to as profitability index. As the name suggests, this particular method takes into account a ratio, and the ratio is between the benefits and the costs incurred. So when I say benefits and the cost, they should be on a same timeline. So that's why whatever we are calculating in the previous methods, that is present value of the future benefits or the future cash flows, same thing we have to calculate here also. But instead of subtracting the initial investment or equating that initial investment to the present value of future benefits, here what we have to do is we have to take the ratio of what are the various benefits that will be coming across the life cycle of the project at different time span. What will be their present values, so present worth of all the future benefits that will be coming up in your project life cycle. We have to add them together, and this particular value we have to divide by the cost which is incurred, or we can say the initial investment. Then whatever ratio we are getting, that ratio we call it as the benefit cost ratio. So benefit cost ratio is a ratio used in a cost benefit analysis to summarize the overall relationship between relative cost and benefits of proposed project. Benefit cost ratio are most often used in capital budgeting to analyze the overall value for money of undertaking a new project. However, the cost benefit analysis for large projects can be hard to get right because there are so many assumptions and uncertainties that are hard to quantify. This is why there is usually a wide range of potential BCR outcomes. This benefit cost ratio can be expressed in monetary or qualitative terms. So if a project is having benefit cost ratio greater than 1, means when the benefit cost ratio will have greater than 1 value, when your benefits are more than the cost incurred, the present value of the future benefits, if it is greater than the cost incurred or the initial investment, then the value of benefit cost ratio will be greater than 1, and in that particular case we can say the project is expected to deliver positive net present value. And if it is going to deliver positive net present value, definitely the project will be beneficial and the project can be accepted. This is in case of single project. If you are having mutually exclusive projects, then we have to calculate the benefit cost ratio for all individually, and then we have to take into account the project which is having the highest benefit cost ratio, because that will be the project which is giving higher benefits as compared to the cost incurred or the initial investment. So this is the formula. Benefit cost ratio is equal to summation of, so this CFT, so that we can say the cash flows at individual time periods, 1 2 3 4 5 6, whatever is the lifespan of the project. This cash flows in terms of the benefits divided by 1 plus I bracket raised to t. Why we are going to have divided by 1 plus I bracket raised to t? Because we want to convert all these cash flows which are in future to their present values. Then this present value of all the future benefits. So simple formula is BCR is equal to present value of benefits divided by initial investment, or if there are any cost incurred in future also, you can convert them into their present values and you can put it over here. So the denominator of the formula, this is CFT in bracket costs divided by 1 plus I bracket raised to T. So when I take the initial, if only initial investment is given, no other costs are specified, then this will be initial investment comes at time 0 at the initiation. So T will be equal to 0 in the numerator, in the denominator quantity, denominator ratio. So this will be simply the initial investment. So the simplest formula, BCR, benefit cost ratio, is equal to present value of the benefits divided by initial investment. And how to calculate the present value of benefits, PVB, that is nothing but summation of cash flows benefits divided by 1 plus I bracket raised to T, summation of all the cash flows for period T equal to 0 to T equal to N. Although this formula may appear complicated, calculation is simply to discount cash flows divided by discounted cash outflows. The discount rate usually refers to the cost of capital. So whatever cost of capital, rate of interest, the discount rate mentioned in the problem, that we have to use here in place of the value of I. As we have discussed earlier also, whenever we are trying to find out the present values, this I should be substituted in the form of decimals. So if it is a 15% discount rate or cost of capital given, we should substitute here as 1 plus 0.15, that is 1.15 bracket raised to T, and T will be equal to 0 to N, whatever are the benefits incurred. So benefit cost ratio is used to determine viability of cash flows from an asset or project. Higher the ratio, the more attractive project's risk return profile. A BCR of 2.90 can be interpreted as, for each $1 of cost in the project, expected benefits generated are $2.90. So that is how we can interpret the results of this cost benefit ratio calculation. Poor cash flow forecasting or an incorrect discount rate would lead to flawed benefit cost ratio. So these all techniques, basically they depend upon the forecasted values for the cost, the benefits and costs which will be there in your project. If that forecasting is having inaccuracy, then definitely the results of benefit cost ratio will be poor. Although the benefit cost ratio is a simple tool to gauge the attractiveness of a project or asset, it should not be the sole determinant of project's feasibility. Other ratios and further analysis are recommended. So simply depending on benefit cost ratio, the decision should not be taken. Some other considerations, some other methodologies, they should be also adopted so that the analysis and the decision making will be a foolproof process. Interpretations from BCR values. So if your BCR, benefit cost ratio, is less than 1, then the project is not beneficial. It is a having destroying value and we should reject the project. So that is ultimately the interpretation from the value of BCR. So net present value will be negative. Internal rate of return will be less than the discount rate. If the BCR value is equal to 1, so it is neither beneficial nor it is destroying kind of project. So it is a, we can say whatever cost is incurred, same value you are regaining back. So net present value will be 0 and internal rate of return will be same as the discount rate. So in this particular case, whether to accept the project or reject the project will be depending upon the strategic decisions by the top management or senior authorities in the organization. And if BCR is greater than 1, then definitely the project is beneficial. It is generating incremental value. The net present value of the project will be exceeding 0, means the net present value will be positive and internal rate of return will be greater than the discount rate. Advantages of benefit cost ratio. It is useful starting point in determining project's feasibility and whether it can generate incremental value or not. If the inputs are known, that is the various cash flows, the discount rate, the cost incurred, it is very easy to calculate this particular ratio. Important parameter, important advantage is this ratio takes into account the time value of money using the discount rate, and this ratio indicates the value generated per dollar of cost or per unit whatever monetary units we are using for cost. So per unit of cost, how much is the value generated, how much are the benefits generated, that value will be given by this particular ratio. There are obviously some limitations or disadvantages. Reliability of this benefit cost ratio depends heavily on the assumptions. Poor cash flow forecasting or incorrect discount rate will be leading to flaws in the ratio value whatever you are getting. The ratio itself does not indicate project size or provide a specific value on what the asset or project will generate. So this is a simple example. Consider a project which is evaluated by a firm having cost of capital 12%. Initial investment is rupees 1 lakh and benefits are 25,000, 40,000, 40,000, 50,000 during year 1, 2, 3, 4 respectively. Decide whether to accept the project or reject the project based on the benefit cost ratio value. So you can see the cost of capital is given, it is 12%. So value of I is equal to 0.12. Initial investment, that is at time 0, the investment what is required for the project is rupees 1 lakh, and the benefits what we are achieving through this project, the net cash inflows for year 1, 2, 3, 4, they are 25,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees, 40,000 rupees and 50,000 rupees. So now we have the benefits, we have the initial investment, we have the cost of capital. We know that the lifespan of your project is to be considered for 4 years. So present value of benefits, if we want to calculate, each benefit must be divided by 1 plus discount rate bracket raised to 1, because 1, 2, 3, 4, the year at which those benefits they are occurring in project life cycle. This is nothing but conversion of the future benefits into their present values by discounting with the cost of capital given. So 25,000 divided by 1 plus 0.12 bracket raised to 1 plus 40,000 divided by 1 plus 0.12 bracket square plus 40,000, that is third year's investment, third year's benefits, 1 plus 0.12 bracket cube plus 50,000 divided by 1 plus 0.12 bracket raised to 4. So this, if we calculate, you can also calculate and cross check the value. It should come out to be approximately 1,14,456.29 rupees. Now this present value of benefits divided by the initial investment, which is given as 1 lakh. So obviously you can see the present value of benefits are more than the initial investment. So we are getting the benefit cost ratio is equal to 1.145, and this value, since it is greater than 1 and only one project is under consideration, so the decision is to whether to accept the project or reject the project. So we will say the project should be accepted. Payback period, this is one of the method in which the initial so these three methods, net present value, then internal rate of return and benefit cost ratio, these all three methods were taken into account the time value of money, cost of capital was considered, the present value of future benefits, future cash flows, they were taken into account. Now this is one of the method which is non-discounted type of investment decision method. So here we are not taking into account the time value of money, we are simply taking into consideration how much is the investment and how much are the benefits which we are getting, and within how much time period we will be getting our investment back. So that is the ultimate calculation we have to take into account. If the cash flows are even, that is we have the cash flows which are uniform for all the periods under consideration, we can say payback period is equal to initial investment divided by net cash flow per period. So simply we can calculate this. And if the cash flows are uneven, then we can go for calculation of cumulative net cash flow for each period and then use this formula, payback period is equal to A plus B upon C, where A is last period number with a negative cumulative cash flow, B is the absolute value of cumulative net cash flow at the end of period A, and C is the total cash inflow during the period following period A. So if we look at the formula, calculation of payback period for even cash flows. That is simpler. Simply you can take a ratio. When you go for this uneven cash flow, slightly we have to go for calculation of cumulative values and all, or simply you can go for checking, go on adding the cash flows together and check at what time period you are getting the investment returned back. Now, considering the decision rule, the longer the payback period of a project, the higher is the risk. Between mutually exclusive projects having similar return, the decision should be based upon invest in the project having shortest payback period. So if you are considering the mutually exclusive projects and you are supposed to select only one, then the project which is giving shortest payback, the project which is having shortest payback period, that should be considered. When deciding whether to invest in the project or when comparing projects having different returns, decision based on payback period is relatively complex. Decision whether to accept or reject the project based on its payback period depends upon the risk appetite of the management. So simply, if we take into account the payback period, when the returns are similar, it is easier to understand that the project which is giving or which is having the payback period less, it should be accepted or it should be selected. But when the returns are different, then the comparison cannot be made on a common timeline or common basis. So the selection or rejection of the project depends upon the risk appetite of the management, risk taking capabilities of the management. Sometimes the management may set a benchmarking payback period so that the calculation of payback period for different projects, if it is exceeding that timeline which is set as benchmark, then the project should be rejected. If the payback period what you are calculating is less than the benchmark which is set, then the project may be considered. So that is another way in which the payback period can be a payback period method can be used for deciding upon the project. But preferably this payback period method is very rarely used because time value of money is not taken into account. So a simple example, company C, we are taking example for even net cash flows. Company C is planning to undertake project requiring initial investment of $105 million. Project is expected to generate $25 million per year in net cash flow for 7 years. So the cash flow is uniform for all the 7 years, that is $25 million. Calculate the payback period of the project. So 105 you are investing and $25 million per year you will be getting as the net cash flow. So since we are not taking into account the time value of money, simply we have to divide this initial investment by the annual even cash flow what we are getting. So $105 million divided by $25 million, if we put this into formula, then the payback period we get that it is 4.2 years. That is the value of your payback period. So when we are taking into account this 4.2 years, it is not 4 years and 2 months. It is 4.2 years. So if we want to calculate in terms of months, then 4.2 multiplied by 12. So that will give you the number of months in which the investment will be back. So 4.2 doesn't indicate 4 year 2 months. It is 4.2 years. If the cash flows are uneven, let us say the company C is planning to undertake another project requiring initial investment of $50 million. It is expected to generate $10 million net cash flow in year 1, $13 million in year 2, $16 million in year 3, $19 million in year 4, and $22 million in year 5. Calculate the payback value of the project. So now you can see over the 5 years lifespan of the project, the net cash flow what you are getting, they all are different: 10, 13, 16, 19, 22. So now $50 million is your investment. We have to check when your investment you will be getting back. If we go simply, then we can say 10 plus 13, that is 23, plus 16, that is 39, plus 19, which is 58. So somewhere between year 3 and year 4, our investment is expected to get back. So that exact value we need to find out. So these are the cash flows. This is in bracket, means this is negative, or this is cash outflow. $50 million we are investing. Then first year we are getting $10 million. Second, we are getting $13 million. Third year we are getting $16 million. So you can see still we are in negative. We have invested 50, so still 40 are remaining, still 27 are remaining, still $11 million they are remaining. So at the end of year 3, out of $50,000 which have been invested, you have regained $39 million, but $11 million they are still pending. Out of this $11 million, in year 4, $19 million when you will be having the net cash inflow. Out of this 19, 11 will be utilized to repay this $50 million which is invested. So net cash flow which remains in positive, that will be $8 million. And then year 5 we are earning $22 million. So 8 plus 22, the cumulative cash flow. So the total positive benefit what will be hand in hand is $30 million. Now if we look at this, then A is nothing but the last time period for which you have the cumulative cash flow as negative. So that is period 3. After period 3, the cash flow is getting converted from negative, cumulative cash flow is getting changed from negative to positive. Then B is nothing but what? This is the negative cash flow corresponding to that last period, that is 3. So 11 divided by the annual cash flow which is for the next period, that is period 4. So 3 plus 11 divided by 9, so that is 0.58. So we can say approximately the payback period is 3.6 years. Again, when I say 3.6 years, it is not 3 years and 6 months. It is 3.6 multiplied by 12. That many months will be the total payback period for this particular project. Advantages: payback period is very simple to calculate. It can be a measure of risk inherent in a project. Since cash flows that occur later in project life are considered more uncertain, payback period provides indication of how certain the project cash flow inflows are. Obviously, there are certain disadvantages. Money is not taken into account, and that is a serious drawback, because of which this method is very rarely to be used. To compensate this particular limitation, there is one more method related to payback period, which is called as discounted payback period. And in this particular method, the time value of money which was ignored in simple payback period, that has been taken into account to make the payback period method suitable in real life, because the discounted values or the present values of the cash flows, that they will be taken into consideration. Time value of money will be taken into consideration by having the appropriate cost of capital or rate of interest which is there. So in discounted payback period method, we have to calculate the present value of each cash inflow, same as we have calculated earlier. So discounted cash flow will be equal to actual cash flow divided by 1 plus I bracket raised to n, where I will be discount rate and period of cash flow, that will be nothing but small n. And then rest of the process is same as our earlier. The discounted payback period will be equal to A plus B upon C, same as what we have done for the uneven cash flows in simple cash flow method, simple payback period method. The decision rule, again, shorter discounted payback period method will be indicating lower risk. If there are two investments having similar returns, the project which is having shorter payback period should be selected. Again, if the returns are different, then management should decide whether which project is to be accepted. One example of discounted payback period method: an initial investment of $2,324,000, 23 lakhs $24,000 is expected to generate 6 lakh dollars per year for 6 years. Calculate the discounted payback period of the investment if the discount rate is 11%. So in this case, the cash inflow are constant for all the 6 years. The initial investment is given and the cost of capital is given, or discount rate is given as 11%. So using this, we need to calculate. So this is a tabular format. Cash flows are given. This is the investment. So I have indicated this cash flow as minus 2,324,000 at period 0. And these are all 6 lakh rupees, $6 lakh for year 1 to 6. These are all the net cash inflows per year. The present value factor, if we calculate 1 divided by 1 plus I bracket raised to n, putting the value of I as 0.11, because 11% is the discount rate, and raised to 0, raised to 1, raised to 2, raised to 3, raised to 4, raised to 5, raised to 6. So these are all the present value factors. The cash flow multiplied by present value factor, this will be the discounted cash flow for all the years, and then we can calculate the cumulative discounted cash flow by taking into account this discounted cash flow for the next period every time. So you can see after period 5 or for period 5, your cumulative discounted cash flow, it is minus, but for period 6 it is positive. So we should take into account this period 5 as our A, the negative cumulative discounted cash flow as the value for B, and the discounted cash flow for next period under consideration, that is for period 6, that will be the value for C. So that's why the discounted payback period will be equal to 5 plus, inside bracket, this is the modulus of minus 106,462 divided by 320,785. So this is going to give us the discounted payback period approximately equal to 5.33 years. Advantages: discounted payback period is more reliable than simple payback period method because it is taking into account the time value of money. So this particular method ignores the cash inflows after the payback period. So that is one of the disadvantage. Last method is accounting rate of return. Again, this particular method is not taking into account the time value of money. The accounting rate of return, one of the formula, there are so many formulas, but one of the formula is accounting rate of return is equal to average accounting profit divided by average investment. So this is one example. Initial investment of $1,30,000 is expected to generate annual cash inflow of $32,000 for 6 years. Depreciation is allowed on the straight line basis. It is estimated that project will generate scrap value of $10,500 at the end of year 6. Calculate accounting rate of return assuming there are no other expenses on the project. So in this particular case, annual depreciation is also taken into account. Depreciation is nothing but there is some rate at which your investment will be going in the decreasing manner. The value of your investment or the value of your asset, it will go on decreasing over a period of time because of the deterioration or because the use of that particular asset. So annual depreciation, since it is given as straight line basis, so initial investment, what you have invested, minus the scrap value at which you are going to sell it, divided by the useful life for your product. So that is 6 years. So the annual depreciation is $19,917. So when we try to find out the actual income, so average accounting income will be $32,000, which is given, but the depreciation should be subtracted from that, because that much the value of your product is going to get decreased per year. So the net or average accounting income what you are actually getting is $12,083. So accounting rate of return, when we are calculating this average accounting income, should be divided by the initial investment. So we get the accounting rate of return is equal to 9.3%. So sometimes there will be some accounting rate of return specified, and if your accounting rate of return is exceeding that benchmark, you can accept the project. If it is less than that, you can reject the project. If multiple projects are there mutually exclusive, then you can select the project which is having higher accounting rate of return. So this is another example, mutually exclusive projects for calculation of ARR. So cash outflows are given, cash inflows are given, salvage value, that is this at the end you are selling the project, that is also given for all the projects. Again, straight line depreciation method is to be used. So this is the calculation: cash inflow, salvage value, depreciation based upon the initial investment and salvage value divided by the useful period. So straight line method has given depreciation value as 70 for all the years for project A, and for project B it has given the depreciation value as 60 for all the years. So each year what is the cash inflow and what is the depreciation value, based upon that we can calculate the accounting income. So for period 1 and 2 it is simply cash inflow minus depreciation, but for period 3 cash inflow plus your salvage value minus the depreciation, that is your accounting income. So if we add all these three accounting income for project A, for project B, and divide by 3, then we get the average accounting income, and this average accounting income divided by the initial investment will give us the value of accounting rate of return. So what we observe is the accounting rate of return for project A is 19.1%, for project B it is 20%. So ARR for project B is higher, and that's why this particular project is more favorable than project A. So this is having advantage like payback period, investment appraisal is easy to calculate. This considers the profitability factor of investment. Again, disadvantage, if you take into account the time value of money is ignored, that is most important. So there are certain examples for practice. So this PPT is already shared. You can go through these examples and the solutions are also given.